Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class. I'm Dr. Petra. We're happy for you to be with us. We're happy for you to be in the room with us. We're happy to be with you to be with us online, wherever it is that you are online with us. So we're in the Science of Mind. We are on page 392 and 393. We're walking through the general summary and going back over like what is the philosophy. And as we do this sort of recap in the general summary, one of the things that it's nice to think about is that what we have here basically is a map of the nature of reality. And different maps focus on different things, and different maps give us different information about the nature of reality and about life and the divine. And so this map is seeking to not be what shall we say? This map seeks to not be impinged by culture or by religiosity, but really seeks to ask the question, what's true that we can see across spiritualities, across religions, across science and philosophy? What are some of those pieces that seem to be this pointed to? And so we're building a map of the nature of reality, both the whole reality, right? Tangible, intangible, physical, metaphysical, all of it, kind of building a map of it and getting a sense of what it is we're talking about. So a couple weeks ago, we started out with the impulse of life, the oneness of life, the intention of life, and we talked a little bit about consciousness. And then last week we talked about this universal subjectivity, which is a big mouthful for the recognition that there is a lawful and orderly way in which the creation process is taking place. And this next piece is a little more of the same, but rather than focusing purely on the law, the universal law of cause and effect, we're now focusing on how does that begin to move into physicality, into creation. And so on the bottom of page 392, and again, we're going to play with the translation of the word mind to consciousness. And I keep wanting to remind ourselves that when Ernest Holmes is using the term mind, he does not mean the brain. He does not mean your intellect. He does not mean a left brain. And so the time period that was the word they used, coming out of the nascent psychology. And we might today, if this book were being written today, we might actually use the word consciousness, because that's really what's coming to the forefront. It's the wholeness of it, not just, some like cerebral, limited brain associated left brain rational idea. So we want to continually not get caught on that with the word mind. So occasionally we'll play with translating it to the word consciousness and see if that opens it up and helps us get a better idea of what it is that is trying to be described here. All right, because that's all we're doing is we're describing the landscape. We're walking around describing the landscape as if we were following a topographical map that says, oh, here's a valley, here's a mountain, here's a river, here's right here, and then how to navigate all of that. In universal mind, or we could say in universal consciousness, is contained the essence of everything that ever was, is, or shall be. The essence of it. The seen and the unseen are in it and governed by it. It is the sole and only creative agency in the universe. And all other apparent created agencies are it, universal consciousness, working in different way. Things, the created universe, exists in the universal consciousness as ideas. Ideas take form and become things in the concrete or the visible world. Thought calls things forth from the universal into expression, right? So last week we talked about universal subjectivity as the law, but the other idea is that it actually, excuse me, has the intelligence, the know-how, and the stuff out of which everything is made. Again, we want to be very clear. We're not talking about something separate from the whole oneness, the allness of reality. But we're pulling it out so that we can talk about this aspect of reality and how it works. And so universal mind contains the essence of everything. Now, this is a deeply Platonic idea. We find it in the Gospels. We find it in Plotinus. We find it in the ongoing philosophy of Western civilization. Not all philosophies agree with this, right? But we also find it in the mystic traditions, that we can touch the essence of the impulse for something which is not yet formed. Of course, the classic example we might have used last week, I think, as well. The classic example is the essence of tree, right? Do we know that a tree is a tree because we can recognize that the physical tree is an outpicturing of the essence of treeness? Or do we know it's a tree because we catalog its leaves, its trunk from a phenomenological point of view, which means we explore the phenomenon that we experience, and then we determine, oh, well, that's a tree. And from the metaphysical point of view, there is an impulse, a pattern for the essence of things. We call this the idea. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily it's a fully formed idea of what it will look like, but it is the essence of the idea. So, my favorite example of this is the chair. So, what's the idea of chair? Well, if we think about where it might begin, the idea of chair is something to sit upon. And then we might think about, well, the idea of chair is something to sit upon that's slightly elevated off the ground, that's easier to sit upon. So go all the way back to our, four ancestors, or however many hundreds of thousands, if not millennia ago, and they, drug up a tree branch or drug up a tree stump because there was this sense of, oh, well, this would be easier if I sat on something. Right? And that's the idea. Not like, oh, like the chair in your room is a little thing on the shelf somewhere. Oh, that idea, I'm going to pick that Barcalounger out of universal mind and now create it. Do you see? It's the essence of the thing. And over time, somebody along the way said, wow, this would be a lot easier if I had something to rest upon, right? If I sit by the river and I rest my back against the cliff, that makes sitting easier. What if we put a back on whatever it is we're sitting on? Gee, wouldn't that make it easier? Do you see the essence of the idea is now to sit upon something that actually makes it not only easier to sit, but more comfortable. And over time, right, the essence of that idea has millions of forms. Rocking chair, Barcalounger chair, I don't know, this kind of chair, right? Folding chair. But you can tell, how do you know it's a chair? Well, you sit on it. Mostly they have backs, but you can have a chair that doesn't, but then we don't call it a chair, do we? We call it a stool or a cushion or a ottoman. And so we actually have the idea of a chair, not because so much of how it looks, but because there is an essence of what it is being, which has now been created in the physical universe. And so we might think about that as a kind of a microscopic example, right, of the universal impulse for creation. And so that impulse of life, and life that moves, and life that grows, and life that reproduces, and life that can find its own little niches, and life that, right, supports the other life around it, and all of a sudden you have ecosystems and you have prey and predator, and you have all these things that allow for life to continually express itself. So, this we want to never be confused with this idea of ideas. And I think sometimes we do actually hope that somehow, the universe will have the idea and all we have to do is pluck it off the shelf. No, what it has is the essence of possibility and potential that is forever available. And our process we're going to start talking about is then how does that happen in our own lives? But to understand how it happens in our own lives, we actually have to look at what do we think the map of reality is, and how do we think it's actually functioning, so that then we can decide to actively engage with it. Okay, so here comes the next statement then. The correct understanding that mind or consciousness in its unformed state can be called forth into individual use is the key to all proper mental and spiritual work from a practical viewpoint. There's so much we could unpack every one of these sentences. They're so unbelievably chock full, right? Notice that he says proper mental and spiritual work. So, gosh, doesn't it make you wonder, I wonder what the difference between those two things are, right? And they're both available and they're both using this creative process, but there might be something slightly different between mental and spiritual work from a practical point of view. So the understanding that we need to have is to know that we are surrounded by such a creativeness, which is this universal consciousness that we're talking about. To know that we are surrounded by such a creativeness is not enough, however. We must use this knowledge for definite purposes if we expect to make conscious use of the law for personal self-expression. Okay, I love this statement because the whole point here isn't that you have to create or manifest to fix something, to get something, to acquire something, to make something better. Although you can do all of those things. The fundamental point here is that self-expression, personal self-expression, is always happening. You got up this morning and you decided what clothes you were going to wear. That's personal self-expression. You got up this morning and you decided to turn this on or come in here to be a part of this class. That's personal self-expression. We are constantly and forever expressing ourselves. And we are using this creativeness that is we are a part of. We're using it all the time. The question only is, are we making conscious use of it for our personal self-expression? Are we actually consciously engaged with this? Or are we feeling limited? Are we feeling subject to the world around us, what we learned as children, what we can and can't do, all the ways in which we believe our lives are somehow circumscribed or limited or even having very negative expectations of our own life? In this limited medium, the potential of all of our desires exists in an unformed state, right? Remember, the outcome, my perfect job, is not sitting on the shelf in universal mind, in universal consciousness. But the idea that perfect self-expression through work is absolutely present in universal mind, in universal consciousness. The unformed is ready to take form, but having no intention of its own, because it is not self-knowing, form must be imposed upon it. So the question is always, what is imposing the idea, the form, onto unformed substance? Well, it's either consciously or unconsciously that the mold is being provided. All we're ever trying to do is to become conscious of what's going on and use it. Form is imposed upon it by the self-knowing mind of God, of Spirit, of the one infinite reality, and of us. We in the little world, right? We in our own worlds, in the microcosm, and God, or that infinite reality, in the great world, in the world of the physical cosmos. So it's always interesting to me when sometimes we get to this point and people will say, well, I'm so spiritual, I'm just going to let Spirit decide. Or I'm so spiritual, I don't need anything anymore. I don't have any desires. Well, you got up this morning, that was a desire. Every time you take a breath, that's a desire. Every time you say to yourself, I'd like to be more spiritually aligned with Spirit, that's a desire. So we confuse desire with the acquisition of things, right? And our whole life is the outpicturing of desire until that turns into a habit. And when it's a habit, we're no longer conscious of it. Do you make a cup of coffee in the morning because you savor your cup of coffee, or do you make the cup of coffee in the morning because, well, it's just what you do? Do you see the difference? I'm either consciously engaging in the ritual of having a cup of coffee, I'm enjoying it, I know that I'm going to, I can go on quite a soliloquy about my morning coffee and my morning ritual with coffee. And sometimes I'm slamming it down because I got a lot going and I'm not really paying attention. And in that moment, having a cup of coffee is just the habit, and I'm not being conscious of my own use of personal creativity, or my own use of the creativity, the creative process that is going on in the universe, in this one infinite reality. And so some of us have a lot of bent towards Buddhism, non-attachment, desire is the issue, right? We have to have no desires, build a karmaless life. And from the metaphysical point of view, that's impossible. Just the fact that you drew breath, you had a desire to be alive. That's the innate desire of life, right? Causing your heart to beat and for you to draw breath. So we might translate in the science of mind it is the clinging to form, the attachment to form that causes suffering. That once a desire has been outpictured, we want it to stay that way always and forever. And we don't ever want it to change. And when it changes, that's what creates the, oh my God, this is a terrible thing, I'm suffering. And yet there's the desire itself, which is the urge for life to express, is part of the innate reality of who we are. So we want to be not afraid of actually asking ourselves, what is the deepest desire of my heart and soul? Sorry, I feel like I have something that's about to fall into my eye. Don't do that. And recognize that it's not, the problem isn't our attachment to express. The problem is only our attachment that what we've expressed stay always exactly as we have, created it. We've decided it's now perfect, or this is what we wanted, and it can never, ever, ever change. All right, so we're going to stop there. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about here. And we're just going to see what has caught your attention so far. And while we turn it over to Ryan's going to say hello to everybody and tell you how you can participate. I'm going to see if I can stop get this thing out of my eyes. So go ahead, Ryan.
So it'll be kind of like a narration for those that are watching online. I can do some background music while you're doing that.
Right? Or not.
Or not.
I think there's clear not.
That was a surprising, overwhelming response to me singing, you guys.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
That was my deepest desire.
For Ryan to sing.
Thank you. I've been having a budding career. So, welcome everybody. Hi, my name is Ryan. I'll be your voice over the microphone here online and here in the room. Hello. There is a couple ways to engage with us, and just for the folks here in the room, just go ahead and raise your hand, and the iconic Richard is helping me out today, and he'll hand you one of the microphones. And that way, those who are online participating get to hear your question as well. But they won't get a chance to see your lovely face. So, And for those who are participating here in Zoom, just hit the raise your hand icon and I can go ahead and bring you into the room as well. Or if you want to leave your questions and comments in the chat, you can do that. And the same goes true for the folks who are joining us on Facebook Live. We always love to hear from you. And those who do write in the chat, I just want to mention we keep it anonymous. That way we have a safe space for spiritual growth. So, what the heck was the question? I'm sorry, I got caught in my singing.
I know, we got caught in the singing, and that was that, right? So the question was, of what we've just looked at or thought about, what did you get caught on? What was the idea? Come on in to the, Sheila, we'd love to have you come in. Okay, she's doing the coffee. All right, well, come on in here. We'd love to, I see now I got caught. Welcome. It's good to see you. So what might have caught you in what we've just looked at? And, and I just really want to note, I want you to notice that, like, you really have to pay attention to these paragraphs. Every sentence says something. So we're going to see what comments or sharing or questions you might have.
And I have somebody who wants to speak here in the Zoom room. So Connie, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Good morning, Connie.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Petrie. Good morning, everybody. Oh, boy, these topics are so fantastic, and they speak right to me, and I'm so grateful. Several years ago, realized that I absolutely had to form a new habit, which is getting daily exercise. And I didn't have time for it. I would brush it off. Oh, I have other things to do. But then I got a lot of pain, osteoporosis, and I realized through my doctor and through just thinking about it that exercise was one of the keys to getting better. And so I started it, and then, I think I've talked about this before probably 1,000 times, but anyway, I started it, and I started to really enjoy it. At first it had to be very conscious, get up and go out and get your walk in, do your exercise, very conscious. But then in time, it went into that realm of being unconscious. I just did it.
Good.
And I'm doing it now every day, and honestly, has to happen.
Yes.
And I know it. But I'd like for my habits to come from a positive
Yes.
rather than a negative.
Yes. That's beautiful, Connie. Thank you for sharing. Could you rub that off on me a little bit, please? I'm in search of that habit, so I'm going to remember what you just said. But you say something really important, right? This is some of the things that so our habits are not bad. This is the way we are designed to operate. We cannot walk around every minute of every day making every possible decision that is required of us. Well, our brains would simply explode. And so we are designed to work on habits. Our heartbeat is habitual, our breath is habitual, right? There's all these ways in which our life is designed to run on habits. And they're all based on this idea that originally we learned these ideas about the essence of life, and we have begun to express them. The challenge, of course, is only that some of our habits don't serve. The habit of not exercising, the habit of eating ice cream every night, the habit of whatever it is, right? It's not just physical habits, but it's emotional habits and habits of thinking. And Connie, as you said, right, a lot of them are negative. I grew up with the habit of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Because that's the family experience I grew up in. You never knew when my father was just going to spin out in some way. And so we were always constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, I haven't lived at home with my father since I was 11, and yet that had become a habitual way of expressing life and experiencing life. And my desire was always to avoid the other shoe dropping. But what was I doing was focusing on, of course, that the other shoe was bound to drop, and I was looking for it. So I had to build a new habit. the new habit I had to build was I live in a safe universe. The universe supports me. I had to realize that that habitual way of thinking was in fact creating the experience of my life, and to build that new habit. And then, Connie, exactly as you said, right, we have to start consciously to consciously use this for personal self-expression. But the point is that when we consciously use these principles for personal self-expression, that they do over time simply become the new habit. And then we don't have to be so self-aware of that particular thing, whether it's a negative a negative thought or exercise or whatever it is, right? We can begin to work on whatever the next thing is. And do you see the desire there, Connie? I'm going to suggest that the desire there is for a healthy, pain-free life, right? It's not like there was a form or an idea in universal mind that said Connie will now walk every day. Do you see what I'm saying? But the desire for health and well-being and to not have pain then is the inner urge and the creative universal impulse of expressing that begins to be supported. And over time, then that becomes the habit. And then, of course, we're just living in the realm of, well, my life includes walking, period. I mean, it's not even, do you see, it becomes something that's so natural to us that we don't think about it. The problem is, what's often so natural to us is the negative thinking, the limited thinking, the ways in which, mine is, I don't have time. I don't have time to exercise. I'm so busy, I don't have time to exercise, right? And so what do I manifest? No time to exercise. Hello? Right? So I'm diligently working on that. And Connie, I'm going to have that rub off on me. All right? I love that. Other thoughts, comments here in the room, online, or we'll carry on. Okay, Ryan?
All right. Yeah, Dennis, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and join the conversation?
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning. Oh, I'm liking this hybrid stuff. I don't see you in a while. But anyway, hey, this line here, if we are to, which we do, believe these writings, this just jumped out at me. This is the line about the essence of everything. Okay, so here's the deal. Nothing is impossible. Well, why is that, Dennis? Because in universal consciousness is contained the essence of everything that shall ever be. Which means, like you said, it's not going to drop there, but it means we have the ability to create anything.
Right.
That line just really popped out to me in that facet.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you for pulling that out, Dennis, right? And that is the essence of the ongoing evolution of creation and of humanity, of our technology, and our understanding of how we want life to unfold. The essence of it is always available to us. And so the potential is always available. I mean, it's astonishing to me how many things that I read in sci-fi and fantasy novels when I was a teenager, like, are now reality. We don't even think about it. We don't even think about it. We don't even, hello, talking into the watch, right? Cracks me up. And that's just a small example of all the ways that this unfolds. And of course, because that technology is a specifically human expression of life, it's about our ability to see that potential and then continue to work and unfold that potential. The potential is always there. And the essence of it is always there. I mean, remember when they used to say that you couldn't run the 4-minute mile? What happened? Somebody broke the 4-minute mile, and all of a sudden, lots of people broke the 4-minute mile because the essence of that had shifted in an expectation of, wait, actually, we can do this, right? And what's the essence of that? But humanity's physical nature and its evolving ability to continue to express itself more fully. Good. All right. So we have a question here or a comment here. Richard's going to bring you a microphone just so the people online can really hear you.
I'm Willie.
Hi, Willie.
I didn't manifest a thing, but I manifested an experience.
Okay, good.
The other night. My daughter and her son always are just headbutting. And so I was going to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, and she called me and said, "Where are you?" And the pharmacy's really close to her house. And I said, "I'm almost at the pharmacy." And she said, "Well, come and pick up Matthew, or I'm calling the cops and I'm having him taken away."
Uh-oh.
And so I said, "Okay." And then I thought about it, and I just thought about how she pulls me in, how she hooks me and gets me right in the middle of everything. And so I just started saying, peace, love, and calm. And I just said it over and over and over until I got there. And I'm not going to go into her house because then I'm in her space. So I just texted her and said, "I'm here." So then she came out to the car and she said, "Can I go with you? Because he says he's not going anywhere." But she was calm.
See.
And I said, "Well, Anne Marie, sometimes I think that your consequences are way bigger than the crime." So then she goes off on that, and that wasn't a good thing to say, probably. Anyway, I said, "Do you want me to take him to dinner?" Because it was around dinner time. And she said, "I'll go ask him." So she went in and she texted me back and said he's not coming. And so but then he came out and he got in the car and he went with me and he was perfectly calm, and he talked to me. He talked about how she didn't understand that if he paid for something, she couldn't use it as leverage. She couldn't take that away from him because he paid for it. So we had to have this whole conversation about, I'm not sure the law would support you because you're a minor, but it was calm.
Yes.
The whole experience was calm.
Yes.
And that was amazing.
That is amazing. And thank you, Willie, for sharing that, right? Because those are the kinds of things that we do actually create. A thing isn't always a thing, right? But to be very intentional about how we want this experience to go. And it's like you said, you were calm, she was calm, then she wasn't calm, but then but then he came out and he was calm. So it's not like a perfect, what am I trying to say? It's not necessarily a perfect straight line, but a whole lot more calmness rather than Willie sitting there in the car going me to herself about her daughter and her grandson, and then if he gets in the car and you're always doing this and it's always this, right? And so you had a very intentional, the essence of calm, the essence of peace, right? And then when we do that, we're creating that space, and that's the. That's the miracle of it. That's the magic of it, is that it is actually possible to participate in this co-creative process. So thank you for sharing that. I really love that. All right, I saw a JL, I saw a hand there, and then we'll come to Travis. Okay, so yeah. Let's start with JL. I saw JL's hand first. That's all right, no worries. And then we'll come to Travis. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay.
So if I was listening in a car and the question is still the same, it was about manifesting.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So I've done a lot of manifesting here at CSL. You've been through part of that journey. Recently, I've manifested the job of my dreams. Yay. I know, right?
Yay.
So how did I do that is basically I set it in intention of what I wanted. I quit my last job. I was jobless for 2 months. But I set my intentions, not that I didn't get offers during that time frame, because I did, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I know I had at least 2 months. So I kept grinding and making sure that I reached out for those opportunities that I desired. And that's when the universe does it. You just don't know how it's going to work out.
Right.
But it does. And it was a job, and they said, well, you might have to work weekends. I was like, well, I don't work weekends, but thank you so much for, considering me. And then the next thing is they called me back a month later and said, okay, we can be flexible. And I was like, okay.
I love that.
I'm excited for that. And without the teachings, I wouldn't been able to really set my intentions. Well, I always set my intentions, but I think this has taught me a method, how the law works, and that I'm working with it.
Beautiful, JL. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know, really, that's so awesome. And to recognize that when we are comfortable with the fact that we actually do have a desire, I want a job that feels this way, that allows me to express this way, that feels like it's in alignment with me, right? Then we can manage and turn off those negative thoughts that say, well, if you don't take that first offer, you might never get another one. Who do you think you are? Right? All that nonsense that can go on, and to stay really committed to it. And even to the point where it looked like it might be the right job, but it not quite. And so you were willing to say, well, no, not to give up on the essence of what it is we're seeking to create, right? It's always the essence of it that is the most important thing. And to stay really focused on that. And sure enough, a month later, they called you back. It's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that, JL. I love that. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Travis. Willie, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated your share. I've definitely been in your grandson's position of having something leveraged against me that was in my eyes mine because I bought it. I put my effort and work into it. But I was just going to comment on your mantra before you went into the situation, the calm, repeating that to yourself. Doing that, it creates a field around you from your mind, from your energetic body. And I really wonder since instead of you going into their space, they came into your space, they came into your field, they were able to be washed with that calm from you. I really wonder how it would have been if you went into theirs. So
I wasn't taking a chance on that.
Right?
I'm really glad that sometimes whenever I do those mantras, it doesn't have an automatic reaction. It doesn't have an automatic thing that I can sense. But it usually manifests externally. Whenever people come into my field and then I have interactions with others, it's like I might not be able to observe this within myself because I might have so much going on, thoughts in my head, going on, monkey mind. But once others start interacting with me, then I realize, oh wow, this is working. Wow,
That's exactly what I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you. Thank you, Travis. And thank you, Willie. And I think that you say something really important to notice that, right? We aren't actually controlling the external world. It's here that we're doing the work. And it's easier to do that when we don't get sucked into somebody else's world. That can be a big challenge. Can be a challenge at work, can be a challenge at home, can be a challenge with the situation that Willie shared. And so really to pay attention to setting yourself up for success in this. And so if we find that a difficult thing, right, that's a part of the healthy boundaries, that we can use our psychological boundaries to support our spiritual knowing and our spiritual work. I know that when I go into that space or when this kind of thing happens, that it's hard for me to maintain my mantra of peace and calm. Okay, so how can you set that up differently and really create that energetic field? And the more that we practice that, the more confident we become in then taking our intention and our energetic field into a difficult situation, right? That's what it means to be a light worker, That's what it means to be love, to bring light. And it's a boatload of work. It is a boatload of work to do that. And so we practice first by setting our boundaries, being really strong within ourselves, and inviting people into our space until we feel more confident that we can then go into that more difficult situation, or the situation where we know we have a tendency to get sucked in, and we've built that muscle. Beautiful. JL, did you have another comment?
Just the fact that I was thinking about what you said, and when I decided to quit my job, I made sure not to tell anybody that I quit my job.
Yes.
I didn't want any negative,
Yes.
what they think. During the pandemic, I did not want any of that inside my space. And so it's very limited few that I told.
Yes.
And I think that protected my space.
Oh man, do you say something so important? You say something hugely important, and later, somewhere in all of this writing, right, Ernest Holmes says exactly the same thing. Don't tell everybody, because you are going to get the negative reaction. What? You quit your job without having a new one? What are you thinking? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And right? And it's a lot of diligent work to stand guard and say, I'm not going to get sucked into that. No, I'm not going to worry about that. By God, I set my intention. And so these are the kinds of times and places where we really want to be thoughtful. Who are we sharing this with? Are they going to support us in this? Are they going to say, go for it, JL? I absolutely know that this is going to work for you. And to really protect our space, our energetic field. It doesn't mean we don't care about those people, we don't like them. It doesn't mean we might not hang around with them. It doesn't mean any of those things. It means that we are consciously using the law, and we are staying committed to our conscious use of the law and not allowing things to pull us off. This is why we say don't inundate yourself with the news. Not that you shouldn't be informed. Of course you should be informed. We all have to be informed. We have to decide what our informed actions are, what things are important to us, what we want to engage in. But it's the barrage, right? It's the barrage that erodes our habit of a positive expectation, right? And that is as much a habit as anything else. Have we developed the habit of a positive expectation? And when all you're getting is negative feedback, like, what do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? Why do you think that? I can't believe you did that. Right? It erodes our own sense of that, because it's hooking into a lot of old conversations. And so I love that you share that. And so to really pay attention to these really important things, who you're talking to about it, and have a circle of people, one or two, who really are willing to support you in a new way of doing it, a new way of being. Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much, JL. So there's a lot about this conscious engagement. We must use this knowledge for definite purposes if we expect to make conscious use of the law for personal self-expression, right? So JL's is for a job, a thing, something out there. Well, but not a thing, right? But a thing, a job. Willie's example really was an experience, peace, joy. Do you see? We're using this all the time. How many times do we go into a situation and we've steeled ourselves? Well, I know this is going to be a problem. I know this is not going to go well, so I'm just going to, go in there. Well, what are we manifesting with that expectation? And so this process is happening all the time. This is the thing I really want to hammer home. You are doing this whether you know it or not. This is simply what's happening, right? This would be like saying, I'm describing the river. I'm just describing the river to you. Here is where it's smooth. Here is where there's rapids. These rapids are really big. You got to really watch out for that. If you don't feel like you know what you're doing, you might want to practice a little bit. That's right. And and you don't say, well, this is, I don't know if that's really the way this whole thing works. I'm going to, right? You actually learn about the river so that you can then get in your canoe or your kayak or your raft. You go with someone who's been down before, who can tell you what, okay, watch out for these rocks. Now look, if we're going to go through this rapid, we have to go over here. It'll be much better, much safer. And so we're simply describing what's already happening. And we want to consciously engage with it. Or we can stand by the shore and watch other people go down the river and go, wow, how did they do that? How did they do that and not tip over? How did they?
Looks like fun.
That looks like fun. Let's jump in with both feet. All right. So we're going to carry on with our general summary. It's good, fat, juicy work. And so, read it paragraph by paragraph and just take your time with it. There's so much richness in here because, of course, he's condensing a huge amount. We are going to be having our Sunday celebration in 30 minutes. You can join us for that. And Reverend Karen's going to talk about receiving love. And we have all kinds of volunteers who will be receiving love in our celebration, and as well if you're interested in our annual meeting afterwards. So we have a whole host of volunteers we'll be acknowledging, as well as providing some reflection on where we are at the moment. So please do join us. We'll look forward to seeing you there Wednesday night, next Sunday. We're happy to see you when we see you. Bye for now.